What's up guys, my name is Jedith, and in this video we're going to be talking about all of the new changes and updates coming to Mythic Plus in Season 2, which is honestly right around the corner, probably within the next month and a half, and we'll be diving into a new raid, new delves, a new zone, new Mythic Plus dungeon pool, all of the good things that come with a brand new major patch. So there are some updates that are happening to the Mythic Plus system that I want to talk about. There are a lot of new things that I think are going to encourage people to get back into Mythic Plus. A lot of people have stopped playing it over this past season due to a handful of different reasons, but I think mostly Mythic Plus has just started to feel a little demotivating and just not fun to play. But Blizzard has stated that they are well aware of the situation and their #1 priority is to make Mythic Plus fun again. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is a brand new mount that has been added into the mix on top of the rewards that we were getting previously at 2K. This one is a mount that you get at 2850 rating. This is called the Enterprising Shredder Tank. So again, you'll get this at your score being 2850, which is somewhere in the range of all +12s. Time a key higher than +12, that's going to offset what you need elsewhere. You could get by with an 11 somewhere. Whatever you need to get 2850, that will give you this mount, which I think is pretty cool. It's an okay mount, right? It's nothing insane, but what makes me really excited is the fact that they're recognizing that there needs to be more rewards further through the progression line and not just at the lower goalpost of 2K and 2.5K. Now, of course, those might be high goalposts for some players, and I totally recognize that. But for the higher end players who end up pushing a little bit further than that, it's really been lacking any type of tangible reward other than just making your IO score go up. So this is really, really good to see. They've given us something else to strive for. Me personally, this is going to motivate me to push a little bit higher, get up to +12, and hopefully even beyond that. Right now in the current season, in Season 1, there's nothing, right? The only thing that you're getting from timing +12s in this season is some IO score bragging rights, which, you know, really isn't much to brag about anymore. But yes, they are adding more in the progression line, which is a great sign. It's different. It's definitely a new model. One thing to note is that this does fly. So this is what you'll get at 2850. Now that doesn't mean that you're not getting the one at 2K like you used to. This is the mount that you'll get at Keystone Master, which you get at 2K. I would say this one looks a lot cooler than the 2851. Now, what else is changing with Mythic Plus? One of the most talked about changes, and I think misunderstood changes, that Keystones are no longer going to deplete below 12. Now, you could interpret that in many different ways, but I'll hopefully explain it to you in the most clear and concise way that I can. What this means is a key that is a +12 will not deplete down to an 11. That's all it means. If your key is above a 12, it'll still deplete down 1 key level. So if you have a 13 and you deplete it, it will go down to a 12. If you have an 11 that you deplete, it will go down to a 10. All this means is that if you have a 12 and you do not time that key, that 12 will not go below a 12. So the best way to think about it is +12 is now the +2 equivalent. This only starts once you get 2850 IO score. So when you get 2850, you'll get this mount as well as the extra bonus of your key not depleting below a 12. So again, the best comparison is to say, once you get 2850, a key of +12 is now the equivalent of +2. You can't go below that. That's the new baseline. Anything above it will still deplete if you deplete the key. The basic rewards that you get when you go through the Mythic Plus progression, you're going to get the KSM Mount, like we said. The new difference is that instead of getting a tier token that you can turn into some NPC in some zone, and you can choose like which slot of tier you want to get, what you're going to get now is a catalyst charge. You get a catalyst charge early if you get that reward, and then it's up to you what you want to apply that catalyst charge onto. If you want to apply it onto a headpiece that you got from Mythic Plus or from Raid, or, you know, shoulders, legs, whatever, it's totally up to you, and you can just apply it to whatever item you get. Now, you don't have to get 2K in Mythic Plus to get that catalyst charge. That also comes from getting AOTC, killing the final boss on Heroic, and also PvP getting 1600 rating. All of those will give you the reward of having that catalyst charge, and you can only get it from one of those. You can't get it from all three and get 3 catalyst charges. It's one of the 3 different ways to get that reward. Now, 2500, which is Keystone Hero, is going to give you a seasonal title. Not sure what it is. I'll be honest, nobody cares about titles anymore. And you get the particle effect mod on your shoulder and head slot. Now, what this does, it gives you a little extra particle effect on your tier headpiece or your tier shoulders. This can often be pretty underwhelming. I'll show you what it looks like on the current tier. So this is without the particle effect, and then that's with the particle effect. It's, you know, it is what it is, and it only applies to your shoulders and your head. That is one of the rewards from 2500. So now we're going to discuss how Mythic Plus dungeons are going to be changing in the new season. And this has me really excited because this gives me hope that Mythic Plus will actually be fun again. So the first thing, Xal'atath's Guile in Season 1, it's an effect that adds a damage and HP multiplier on top of the base key level modifier. For example, what's happening now in Season 1 is when a keystone goes up 1 level, it increases by 10% per key level. On top of that, Xal'atath's Guile at plus 12 will add an extra 10% on top of that. What that results in is a plus 20% increase per key level at plus 12 and above now. What is changing now, Xal'atath's Guile just modifies the base key level modifier from plus 10 to plus 12. It's not adding an extra 10 on top of the 10 that is happening from the base key level. What this means is each key level up from a plus 12 is going to be increasing by 12%. 12%? Yeah, 12% rather than 20%. So progression past the plus 12 point is going to be much smoother, much easier, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot of higher keys at least attempted in Season 2. If you were one of the players who got in the like plus 10 to plus 12 range and you kind of hit a wall, couldn't get past that breakpoint of plus 12, you're going to have a much easier time in Season 2, which means you can get those rewards a lot easier too. You can get that new mount, everything else that comes with it. Non-depleting past 12, that's going to be much more easier and manageable to get. The tuning and philosophy of dungeons is also changing. So there was an article that was posted by PC Gamer, apologies for the flashbang, and this was an interview with Ian Hazzikostas, basically saying, I'll just summarize it for you, we're not going to read through the whole thing. What he said here is that they recognize that Mythic Plus is struggling. There's been a drop-off in participation, not just because of delves taking some of the player base away from doing Mythic Plus. Those people are now getting their rewards and their crests and whatever from delves, but also just the people who generally would do Mythic Plus at a higher level who aren't really interested in delves. Those people are also dropping off in participation. They've said there's a drastically shrinking player pool. Dungeons just aren't what they used to be. They're not as enjoyable for a lot of different reasons, a lot of changes that were made, and they recognize that. And their number one goal going forward is to fix that, hopefully, or do things at least to help improve the situation. They put out this article where they said, first, we'd like to slow the pace of combat to allow for more coordination when groups are faced with dangerous casters. We've generally increased the cast times of more dangerous spells and removed, simplified, or slowed the casts of others. Secondly, we've also been reviewing the frequency of Tankbuster mechanics throughout our dungeons. We'd like to generally reserve this gameplay for more dangerous creatures and dungeon bosses, so we've removed some instances of tank damage that we felt were inappropriate. So what's been happening in the War Within is there is a change made to how interrupts worked in dungeons. The way it works now, after the newest changes, is if there's a cast going off by a mob, and you stun that mob, it will stop the cast, but then that mob will immediately start recasting that spell. It does not get locked out of casting that spell. The only way to stop it is to actually use an interrupt ability to stop that cast. Once you do that, then the mob is locked out before they can recast. This was not the case in Dragonflight or expansions before that. In Dragonflight, if you stunned a cast, the mob wouldn't recast it until the cooldown came back up. So it was much easier to take care of interrupts and manage caster mobs in pug groups with no communication, because you can kind of just like throw everything at the pack and it'll get taken care of. But now what happens is, first of all, there's no coordination between who's going to kick what. That's just a natural thing that happens in pug groups. But now if you have somebody try to stun a cast at the same time that other players in your group are also trying to use their actual interrupt on it, but the stun lands first, that mob will end up recasting that spell, but now other people in your group have their interrupt on cooldown and they cannot use it. So there's a big snowball effect that happens when that miscommunication unfortunately happens in groups, and it results in a lot of disbanded groups, angry players, name calling, a lot of toxicity. Instead of rolling back that change, which I think ultimately that's just what they need to do, the compromise that they've come to is that they're going to put less caster mobs in any given pack and increase the cast time of those spells. So instead of running into a trash pack now that has, 3 to 5 different caster mobs that you have to manage, now there might be 1 or 2. The scary part is Because there's less, they then have to increase the impact and the severity of those casts. If for whatever reason those casts do get through, you don't kick them, you don't stun them, it'll likely kill you. Just something to keep in mind. I think this is a good step in the right direction where they're rolling back how many things any group has to manage, whether it's a pug group or even just a coordinated group, on top of doing their stuff that they're there to do, right? Their damage, their tanking, their healing. The other problem is that a lot of dungeons in the War Within Season 1 have a lot of Tankbusters. Pretty much every pack of trash has one mob in it that has some type of Tankbuster. Sometimes there's more than one. Sometimes there's 2 Tankbusters that you have to roll your cooldowns to be able to get both of them. Sometimes if that mob gets stunned or there's something that delays their spell queue, the Tankbusters can get in a weird, like, synchronized way that you don't have enough defensives to manage all of them, and then your tank dies. And just like how I described with the other problem, groups disband, names are called, toxicity ensues. But it's even more impactful when a tank dies, because when a tank dies, everyone else dies. It's not just, okay, tank died, that's 1 death. Usually when a tank dies, the whole group dies. So that's 5 deaths, and that's a lot of time off of your Mythic Plus timer. What they're doing is they are rolling back how many Tankbusters they have throughout a dungeon. They're reserving them for more dangerous creatures. So in a pack of mobs where there's a bunch of little shitter mobs and maybe there's one like lieutenant mob, that mob will have a tank buster, rest of them won't, and they're reserving them for dungeon bosses. This is a great change, and I think tanks will be very, very appreciative. The best example of this actually is the new dungeon, Operation Floodgate. Maybe I can put some footage up on the screen while I talk about it here. Doing it the few times that I've done it, you can tell right away that they've implemented these changes. There's a lot less casts to get. There's a few here and there. You know, it just feels a lot more fun to play, I guess. There's less pressure on any individual as you run into a pack of trash. You're not worried, I guess. You know what to do. You can go in, you do your damage, which is, I think, the best thing, right? As a DPS player, you want to do damage. You want to focus on doing as much AoE as you can. You don't want to be worrying about CCing, managing things, rotating interrupts. That's not fun. What is fun, running into a big pack of 8 to 10 mobs and blasting 7 demon surges back to back and seeing your damage skyrocket to the top of the meters. Yeah, I found the new dungeon very, very fun. A lot of these changes have been implemented into that dungeon, and they have stated that they want to apply the same touch, the same broad strokes onto the other dungeons that are going to be included in Season 2's Mythic Plus pool, so that you can see they've started making some changes. For example, Priory of the Sacred Flame, Consecrate now has a precast visual and a 2.75 second cast time. So it's going to be very clear that you can, step out of it. It's not going to insta-kill you. Arathi Footman no longer uses Mortal Strike, which is great. They're just going back to all of these dungeons that we had in the first week of the expansion. We did it on Mythic 0, but you could kind of tell just by getting a sense of like what mobs are in the dungeon, what they do, and then in your mind expanding that into a Mythic Plus situation and thinking, oh my god, this is going to be insanely deadly. So yeah, they're going back and fixing some of these things, changing them. So this gives me a lot of hope for the War Within Season 2. Hopefully they continue on this path, keep listening to the community, keep iterating on the dungeons. Just by the end of this expansion, we could be in a much better place where we've gotten these changes and then even more going into the next season. I think this is all very good. This gives me hope. I am looking forward to getting back into the Mythic Plus grind. It's going to be fun. Let me know what you guys think. Post your thoughts down in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. There's going to be a lot of changes coming up over the next few weeks that I'll, of course, be covering. So stay tuned. Make sure you sub to the channel to get notified when those videos come out. See you next time. Peace.